Okay, so hear me out. There are 9 generations of Pokemon. Let him cook! Okay, there are 8 gym badges in almost every mainline game, plus an Elite Four and a Champion. So, what if one were to take on every single region from Kanto all the way through to Paldea in one single Nuzlocke? Well, my friends, sit back, because in this video, that's exactly what I'm gonna attempt to do, beating 8 gym leaders from different regions, climbing from generation to generation as I beat each one, bringing one team all the way up through games to eventually face off against the champion, who in this case will be Gita. Off the rip, I'm transported back to the depths of Pokemon Red, where our adventure begins. I'm greeted with a title screen in which Ghastly looks like every COVID infomercial in 2019. Then I call my character Dude since Gentledude won't fit, and call my rival Baddie on account of me not being creative enough to think of a good nickname. We devolve from human to chibi, then find ourselves in a seemingly barren room with nothing but a GameCube and a TV placed directly at the center of it. I go downstairs and my mum's dialogue instantly reads, "Right, all boys leave home someday. It said so on TV." Yup, my mother is kicking me out at the ripe old age of 10 because the TV told her to. Immaculate parenting. Regardless, I make my way over to Professor Oak's lab where he's nowhere to be found. So instead of waiting for him, I take initiative to go find out where he went. And I just about make it to the grass before Oak hastily stops me. He lures me into his lab and gives me the choice of 3 starter Pokemon. I choose my boy Charmander, who I then nickname Red. And by the way, there's a nickname theme here, so if you can guess it, go outside, nerd. No one likes a smarty pants. Yep, I said it. Our rival takes the Squirtle and instantly challenges us to a battle. Let's do it. It's the face-off of the century as Red and Squirtle let fly the craziest array of tackles you've ever seen. It's an endless back and forth. However, Red pulls through and wins it, but only survives on 1 single HP. What a showdown. With a newfound confidence, I made my way to Viridian City, located the mart, and grabbed a mysterious parcel from the store clerk to deliver to the professor. I then swiftly head back to good old Pallet Town and reconvene with Oak. I gave him the parcel, took on his hand-me-down pipe dream of completing a Pokedex, and left. Finally, I can make my way to the mart and buy myself the most important item in this part of the Nuzlocke. That's right! Pokeballs. I snag 10, then head over to Route 1 where I catch myself a Pidgey. What a time to be alive! Our very first encounter, I name her Sabrina, and with a smile as wide as a Pixar mom's hips, I press forward. Now, not only can we count on Pidgey, but there are a bunch of other encounters that we have access to before taking on Brock. To the left of Viridian, on Route 22, we find a Nidoran male who we catch and name Bruno. Then, after already catching 2 wild Pokemon of my own, some old guy decides that he needs to teach me how to catch a Pokemon. I humored him, but he wasted my precious time. So to mess with him, I made him believe that I wasn't real, and instead I was just a figment of his creeping dementia. I left northward to Route 2 where I found another Pidgey, which was obviously a duplicate, so I re-encountered to find Rattata. This I can work with. I catch it, name it Gary, then proceed even northward there to Viridian Forest, where a Kakuna shows up. However, in trying to lower its HP, we managed to land a stupid crit which kills it. Fantastic, incredible, amazing, synonyms. Anyway, I trained my Pokemon for a bit before something very silly happened. In the forest, I fought a bug catcher who poisoned Sabrina, and see, that's bad because not only do I not have an antidote, but I didn't take the free potion that resides in every player's box. And not only that, I didn't buy one either. In Generation 1, the poison doesn't fade like in the newer games, so the farther I walked, the more I realized that Sabrina was about to perish. There wasn't anything I could do. Let me rephrase that. There was absolutely something I could do, just not at this point. This is self-inflicted, but in this position, Sabrina dies regardless. I placed Sabrina's decaying corpse into the box and made my way through Viridian Forest to get to Pewter City. Anyway, my friends, our time in Kanto was coming to an end real quick, because the next thing on our checklist was to fight the first gym leader, Brock. A topless gym leader leads Geodude, but real quick, as your common Geodude connoisseur, what in the ever-living cluster fudge is this? My guy is cross-eyed, with either the floppiest haircut of all time or his brains hanging out. And why is one of his hands melting? Okay, listen, I'm done. I just had to express my abhorrence of this thing. I lead Bruno and opt to use Leer turn 1 to lower their defenses. Geodude tackles and I use Leer again. Essentially, this turn repeats itself until I eventually opt to start attacking. Well, the Geodude landed a crit that very turn, so I had no option but to switch out. I chose Gary, and after letting loose a few quick attacks, Brock's first Pokemon goes down. He then brings in his level 14 Rock Snake, and I opt to start Tail Whipping, which works out so incredibly well because Brock thinks he's clever by clicking Bide. I can switch over to our starter Red and use Growl a bunch to lower Onix's attack. I go back over to Gary in the most surgical and safe gym battle I've ever had just to get a couple more Tail Whips off. Predicting the Bide, I used Quick Attack to outspeed, then I stalled it out and Quick Attacked with a Rattata until the the rock snake went down. Gym 1 complete, Gen 1 complete. I left the gym in Pewter City, but somehow found myself emerging from the gym in Violet City. How strange. We instantly get an incoming call from Elm, who talks about some sort of egg that someone has in the Pokemon Center. So I go to said Pokemon Center, collect the free encounter, and make my way to Bellsprout Tower, where after walking around for about 3 to 5 working days, I found a wild Ghastly. So I caught it and named it Price before leaving to the south of Violet City to Route 32, where we encounter the most malnourished looking Ekans I've ever laid eyes on. We catch her too, naming her Whitney. So I make my way to Union Cave and encounter a Rattata, which of course is dupes, but then, my friends, something incredible happens. So I caught her and named her Dude, which actually still somehow works with the name theme. We finally make it through Union Cave without losing anybody and emerge on Route 33, where we can snag ourselves another encounter, a Spearow. Listen, I'm a Pidgey-man myself. I don't really like Fearow on account of its turkey features and its scoliosis neck, but to be real, we need another bird, so I mean, I'll take it if I have to. I catch him, name him Faulkner, and proceed onwards to Azalea, where resides a fella named Kurt, who I chat to, and he warns me of some kind of Team Rocket shenanigans going down in Slowpoke Well. So I get there, fight off some bad guys, and like the tall, handsome, rich, humble, hilarious, jacked, handsome, tall trainer I am, I save the day. And then I head forth to the Azalea Town Gym. Firstly, I use Faulkner to wipe out the twins, then Bugcatcher Al, Bugcatcher Josh, and then Bugcatcher Benny. All before finally, well, leaving to train my team to level 16 to match the gym leader's ace. And in doing so, evolving Red the Charmander into Red the Charmeleon. But once that's done, it was time to evolve Nidoran, actually. But okay, hear me out. Now that that's also done, I can finally press forth to fight the gym leader. Bugsy leads a Metapod, and I lead Red. We start the battle by using Ember to completely incinerate the first bug. Then Bugsy brings in his ace, Scyther, who falls to but a few more. Then all Bugsy had left was just this thing. So, you know, after spamming the A button through the entire gym leader fight, I could leave the Violet City gym and materialize in my home region. Ah, how I've missed this place. Dewford Town. First things first, I talk to the fisherman guy to the right of the gym, because if I ask nicely, he'll give me a fishing rod. Now, that opens up a few encounters, because literally on the patch of sand where we stand, the area splits between Dewford Town and Route 107. So I fished up a Magikarp from Dewford Town and a Tentacool from Route 107. I call them Archie and Norman respectively. Then I decide to run around for a while because the egg that we were given back in Johto hasn't actually hatched yet. So we snag ourselves a Togepi who we named Phoebe, and finally I could progress. In Granite Cave, I spoke to a nice man who gave me the HM for Flash. Then I ran into a Makuhita who I caught and named Brawly. I made my way through the cave, acquainted myself with Steven Stone, and unlocked the ability to set sail to Slateport with Mr. Briny. Upon arrival to Slateport, I spoke with a man named Doc who sent me on a wild goose chase to find a man called Captain Stern. And so I go to the museum, beat up some bad guys on Stern's behalf, and head on out. On Route 110, I find an Electric who I catch and name Courtney, and now I can make my way towards the next city, but before that, I'm stopped in my tracks by May, our rival. She challenges me to a battle, and so I lead Red against her Shroomish. I Ember, they Stun-Spore. I Ember, and the Mushroom falls. May brings in Marshtomp, which isn't incredible for our old pal Red here, so I switch to Gary. And on the switch, May opts to use Bide. And let me tell you, this is not my first rodeo. I tail whip a couple of times to stall out the turns of Bide, then on the turn after they fail to unleash their energy, I use Quick Attack, which does okay damage. We dodge a Mud Shot, land another Quick Attack, and then take a Mud Shot, which all but kills our rat. Not very live, laugh, love. Regardless, one more Quick Attack kills, and finally May brings out her Lava Camo. I summon Dude, and after a Magnitude 7 and a Magnitude 9 in quick succession, we take the fight. I made my way to Mauville, and now before taking on the gym, there are some boxes that I want to tick off. So I head west to Route 117, fought a lady, caught a Volbeat, obliterated Wally, fished up a Goldeen, caught it, then went on an absolute rampage where I tore through every pre-gym leader gym fight without any speed bumps. While training to the appropriate level, Gary evolved from a I'd capture it and take it outside sort of rat into a find it in my house, kill it with fire, move country, and pray for the neighbours sort of rat. And Magikarp evolved into Gyarados. And so with all the necessary team changes complete, it's time to take on the main man, Watson. He leads Magnemite and I lead Brawly. Turn 1, I decide to use Fake Out, then we get outsped and confused by Supersonic. But Brawly breaks through and lands a Vital Throw that one-shots the Magnet. Voltorb comes in next, and so I opt to switch to Price to negate the incoming Sonic Boom. However, then Price took a Spark that paralysed, missed a Hypnosis, took another hit, and missed another Hypnosis. So I guess now I need my Lord and Saviour Dude to step in. I switch her into an oncoming Spark, which doesn't affect ground types. A Sonic Boom hits for 20, then a Magnitude 8 floors Voltorb. Magneton comes in, and a quad-effective Magnitude 8 kills Watson's ace in one hit. We receive the Dynamo Badge, and it's time to bounce on out the gym. Yes, Heart Home. My heart is at home. Off the rip, we can take some time to evolve Dude into a Graveler, Price into a Haunter, and Brawly into a Hairy Mama. Then, as I was leaving Heart Home, I found our rival waiting for me in a tunnel, and he hit me with a surprise attack, so I guess we're fighting him now. I led Dude, and since his lead is a Staravia, we win the 1v1. However, that thing did some solid damage before falling. A Roselia hits the field, and so I opt to switch over to Red on a weak Mega Drain. Red comes through with a critical hit Ember, so the Rose Bush goes down, which baits his Prinplup. I switch to Brawly, get crit, misclick when trying to Fake Out, almost lose Brawly, and switch to Gary the Rat. Sick. Gary deals some damage, but inevitably I have to switch him again, and this time I opt for Price. We take a hit, miss Hypnosis, concede a Growl, land a Hypnosis, and have my ghost Shadow Punch a Penguin to a pulp. Ponyta is next and last, so I opt to click Lick until we land the Para. However, that very turn, an Ember burns Price, so I have to pivot again, this time to Courtney. We switch into Ponyta being full powered, and after a couple of hits, the Fire Horse goes down, winning us the battle. Listen, that was a scrappy fight, but I wasn't prepared for it in any way, shape, or form, and nobody died. That's a win in my eyes. Anyway, we proceed to Route 209, where I find and catch a bee barrel named Bertha. Then just past Salacion on Route 210, we snag a Ponyta called Flint. And finally, on Route 215, after beating a trainer within an inch of his life, we find a Scyther, catch her, and name her Cynthia. So with all that done and dusted, we head to Veilstone City, where outside the gym we find Dawn and flirt for a second before Crash Awake crashes my chances at a date. Now, pre-gym 4, I decided that I'd do a little team comping and change a few things. Main things to note are Faulkner the Spearow evolved, Courtney the Electric also evolved, and Archie the Gyarados makes an appearance onto the squad. With all that in mind, let's beat the crap out of some gym trainers. Riveting stuff, am I right, people? Anyway, now it was time. We enter the ring, and staring us down with fire in her eyes is none other than Maylene. She leads Meditite and I lead Faulkner, and Aerialise outspeeds and Scoliosis Neck wins the 1v1. Good stuff! You ugly piece of sh. Machoke is next in, and another Aerialise outspeeds and does a lovely amount of damage. However, they retaliate with a Rock Tomb, which sure doesn't do too much, but it does slow us down. However, not enough that we don't still outspeed, and so one more hit and Machoke goes down. Lucario Maylene's ace hits the field. We absolutely don't outspeed here, and so Faulkner takes a crazy Drain Punch, which leaves her with a sliver. Wait, Faulkner's a girl? I didn't realize that until now. Sick. We land an Aerialise, and on the next turn I switch over to Courtney, who takes a Metal Claw. On the next turn we outspeed and land a T-Wave, then take a hard hit, we land a solid Spark, then after taking one more hit, Courtney's on a sliver as well. I pivot over to Red, who dodges a hit on the switch in, and one Fire Fang takes the dub. Incredible, magnificent, splendid, awe-inspiring. Say it with me. Synonyms. We leave the gym with 0 casualties and find ourselves breathing in the autumnal air of Nimbasa City. And so the first thing I decide to do is to pretty much replace the entire team front to back. Why would one do this, you might ask? Well, inquisitive stranger, the level cap for Gym 5 of Gen 5 is actually 32, believe it or not. And if we look back to Maylene, her ace, Lucario, was also level 32. So the entire spread of Pokemon that we'd used before and gotten to that level cap are rendered utterly useless right about now. Anyway, the first thing we have to do is go to the theater and dress Bertha up in the most uncomfortable, unflattering, unsettling, unsynonyms outfit for absolutely no reason. Because instead of entering this contest or musical or animal abuse fest or whatever this is, I can actually just bail and run away, which of course I opt to do. Bianca shouts daddy and I blush, but it turned out she was just talking to her actual father and they're in the thick of it. He doesn't believe in her dreams and that sucks. Elisa, a gym leader here in Unova, intervenes and says something wholesome before I could leave off to the west side of the city. However, as soon as I do leave, a wild Cheron appeared and decided that he wanted to partake in a little tomfoolery, and so without warning, here we are fighting. He leads a Liepard and I lead Bertha, who actually makes pretty quick work of his first 2 Pokemon. Anyway, then against the Tranquil, I switched to Gary, who knocked it out with a couple of Hyper Fangs. No wonder, look at the gnashers on this geezer. Cheron brings in his duo, and there's a bit of back and forth before Gary almost dies. No sir, not today, no thank you. I switch over to Cynthia, who I know will outspeed, and so after taking a pretty not fun hit, a Wing Attack KOs and we take the fight. Directly after, we're dragged in to partake in a double battle, this time with Cheron as an ally. We sweep that with Bertha and make our way towards the bridge. But talk about pretty privilege, the gym leader slash literal in-game supermodel says to the drawbridge operator, it's me, Elisa, please lower the bridge. And do you know what happened? They lowered the bridge! What I wouldn't give to be so pretty that the public transport systems divert in my presence. Oh well, listen, it works in my favor because I can head on over the drawbridge, which brings me to Driftveil City. But before embarking on any shenanigans, I decide to head back to the route just left of Nimbasa to get my encounter. So we found ourselves a Liepard, caught it, named it Lenora, and went back across the drawbridge. About 4 steps left of the drawbridge was another bridge, and awaiting me on the other side of it was the gym leader, Clay. Well, it turns out Clay's a corrupt piece of human capitalism, because he's holding my gym badge ransom until I rid his town of Team Plasma. Bruv, I just got here. Regardless, I run down to the cold storage area, find a herdier, catch it, name it Fennel, and head into what looks like a warehouse-shaped refrigerator. I made my way through it, fighting all of the workers because they'd rather procrast their bait than do their jobs. I do that until I found myself one specific cargo container where one of 3 things is going down. Either A, these guys are like penguins and they're huddling together for warmth. B, they're commencing in some sort of group extracurricular activities, if you catch my drift. Or C, it's a secret cult meeting in a cargo container in a fridge. fridge with night costumes on. And either this cult is entirely comprised of people with ginger hair, or these losers are so committed to the bit that they dyed their hair orange. Regardless, we tear them all a new one, and then the workers from earlier escort them out to Horny Jail, or to Real Jail. I'm still not entirely sure what I was here to foil. Clay, like a gentleman, upholds his promise and goes back to his gym, where I'm now allowed to fight him. How gracious. So I sprint to his gym and watch Clay have a weird Mexican standoff with Zinzalin, and gets us and their countless ginger groupies. Regardless, I have one goal here, and nothing is getting in my way. I solve the puzzle with ease, beating every trainer in my path, like the tall, handsome, buff, intelligent, buff again, humble trainer that I am. And in reaching the depths, I lock eyes with him, sat on his weird, isolated emerald throne about 60 feet under the earth. What a weird man you are, Clay. Regardless, you have something of mine that I want, and I'm here to collect it. Clay leads Crocorock, and I lead Bertha. Off the rip, a water gun does just lovely damage, and the Croc uses Torment. The next turn, we outspeed and work up before taking a bulldoze, which is unfortunate because now they outspeed, and before I get the chance to knock this thing out, they land a swagger. But Bertha, like an animal, breaks through, and another water gun floors the alligator. Excadrill comes in, and so after they set up a Hoenn clause, we get a yawn off. They set up another Hoenn clause, and my butt clenches a little, but it's cool because Excadrill falls asleep at the end of that turn. We use another workup, and Bertha is in an okay spot. We break out of confusion and land a water gun that does a nice amount of damage. Then the next turn, a Hyperfang knocks out Clay's ace. Then Bertha absolutely smacks up the Froglin that comes in last. Who could have ever thought that a bee barrel would be this useful? Bro, that's Gen 5 done. We're cooking with gas. Well, we leave the gym, which brings us to Kalos, where literally the second we leave the Eiffel Tower, we receive a hollow clip from a ruggishly handsome professor who wants to meet me at a cafe. I take a taxi to the caf where I meet with the professor and some guy who looks like he's actively being tased. How much hairspray does it take to make your hair stick up like that? Regardless, he calls humanity filth in a spurt of dictator-esque ideals and leaves the cafe. I follow suit, and as soon as I leave, some kid calls me and asks me to meet on Route 14. However, before progressing, I could make a few adjustments to the squad, in that Norman could evolve into Tentacruel and Red evolved into Charizard, my boy! In hitting Route 14, we're met with Serena and Trevor. We exchange niceties, and then Serena challenges me to a round of aggressive flirting. I lead Bertha against her Meowstic, and after taking a bunch of hits, we land a yawn, then switch over to Turkey Neck, who lands a bunch of assurances that eventually knock out the cat. Serena brings out an Absol, so I switch over to Cynthia. After a couple of exchanged punches, a Fury Cutter does what it needs to, and Absol falls. Now Gal brings in a Chestnut, but I've got a fully evolved Red now, so I switch over for a few Firefangs to knock out our starter. Nobody falls, and I win our flirting session. That's how flirting works, right? Anyway, we proceed to the route and find ourselves a Goomy. I'm happy with that. We catch our namer Drazna and proceed forth to a creepy, worn-out house. And when we enter, the camera pans, shakes, and gets closer, as we're being told a horror story by some old guy. He asks us, a very inconspicuous group of preteens, to give him money. Which on one hand, what? But on the other hand, we did fully barge our way into this stranger's house. Regardless, we bid the old guy adieu and make our merry old way to Laver City, where the next gym leader lies. Firstly though, I changed the team around a smidge and evolved Whitney into an Arbok. In the gym, I snuck past some trainers and quickly found myself at the gym leader Valerie. She leads her Mawile and I lead Red. A Firefang off the rip outspeeds and puts Mawile down a hefty amount, then the Mawile uses Iron Defense. Mawile's low health leads Valerie to use a Hyper Potion, bringing it back to full, and now because of the Iron Defense, a Firefang does less than half. Another brings Mawile down a lot, but this time we manage to land the burn, which means the oncoming crunch only does 12 points of damage. Valerie opts to use another Hyper Potion, and so in realizing Charizard knows Ember, I switch to that. One hit plus the burn almost knocks this thing out. But the next turn we outspeed, so it goes down regardless. That took much longer than I thought it would, okay. Mr. Mime comes in next, and I opt for Firefang, mainly because it can flinch as well as burn. Mime gets off a light screen and hits us with a decently hard Psychic, but falls soon after without too much of a fuss. Sylveon, Valerie's ace, hits the field. A Firefang doesn't do a whole lot to it, and we get hit with a Swift that does pretty okay damage. So to avoid an unnecessary crit death, I switch over to Norman, and a couple of poison jabs secure the dub. Big uwu, no dub, some cap. Wait, no, that's not right. We make our way from the gym and emerge on a sunny island in Alola. Nice, I could use a getaway. Now, Alola, as lovely a place as it is, causes a bit of confusion because there aren't any gyms here. Instead, there are trials, but I guess the same general concept stands. We beat the next main trial and count that as a gym badge, so I guess by the end of this, we'll have 7 gym badges and the corpse of a slain wild Komodo, provided we actually beat it, that is. Gen 7 gets rough, man. On leaving the trial, I make my way towards a beach where I run into Hao, who's flirting with Plumeria. Then, out of nowhere, this gal starts talking smack and decides she wants to catch some hands. Listen, we won't be covering every single turn of every single battle, because when I tell you this part specifically in Gen 7 is long, I mean it. So, for all of our sakes, we'll keep it to the important stuff. I beat her up in a valiant feat of valiance, and then valiantly, I press forth to confront a Team Skullgoon because because he stole some kid's Yungoos, which in itself is like, why? So we get access to Sharpedo as a Redmon, find a Pelipper, catch it, name it Hala, make our way through Ula Ula Meadow, catch a Petalil, take out some Team Skull Willies, meet an old man, beat up some more grunties, heal our mons, eat a biscuit, enter a mansion, and meet Guzma, which is equal parts the coolest name ever and the dumbest name ever. Regardless, after finding out that Guzma's the fella who stole Yungoos, I square up to him because who the hell steals a Yungoos? He leads Galissapod and I lead Courtney, but we have a lot to get through, so to summarize, Courtney hits the oversized bug, it powers the bug's ability emergency exit, forces it out of battle, a spider comes in, I paralyze that, switch to my fire dragon, incinerate the spider, the other bug comes back, I switch to Norman, Norman kills the bug, and we win the battle with no losses. Good? Good. We free the Yungoos, meet back up with the old fella from earlier, and Acerola comes in to take credit for saving the Yungoos. Sick. Anyway, apparently Lily, some other gyal, went off with Team Skull, and her brother Gladion is mad at me about it, so I beat him up. That'll teach you to have emotions. After wiping the floor with the face of my enemy, he asks me to join forces with him to infiltrate the Aether Paradise, where we need to save the damsel in distress. But the thing is, it's hard to save a damsel from her distress if the damsel in question loves distress. Anyway, we head to the dock where the old man's identity is revealed, and his name is Officer Nanu. He then, out of nowhere, decides to let us know that, hey, by the way, I'm this island's kahuna, and you have to battle me. So I guess we're fighting Nanu now. Cool, let's do it. He leads a Sableye, and I lead Bertha. Turn 1, we get fake out flinched, then the next turn we pull off a yawn, and take a power gem in retaliation. We land a crit that still doesn't do a whole lot, and Bertha takes a power gem that does a fair amount, but the Sableye fell asleep at the end of the turn, so after dealing some damage, I swap Bertha out for Norman, who deals a bit of damage, then takes some hits, watches as Nanu heals up, and gets jealous that I never heal him. And eventually, he knocks out the Sableye with a water pulse. Nanu brings in a Crocorock, and this is where I make the second big blunder of my run, because I stayed in, and Norman took an earthquake. And when I say Norman took an earthquake, I very much mean Norman died to an earthquake. I brought in Brawly, Crocorock used Swagger, but Brawly breaks through and a Force Palm floors the Croc. Nanu then brings out his moon-faced Persian who fakes out Brawly, then uses Dark Pulse that manages to flinch again. After taking another Dark Pulse, Brawly manages to avoid the flinch and break through confusion, so after just one hit, the Persian goes down. With that, Nanu's team's wiped and we take the battle. He heals my team, gives me a Dark Z Crystal, and Hal joins us on our trip. Then we're given no option but to take a team of 5 to Aether Paradise, where Lily and Cosmog are being held captive. I dodged a few Aether workers, went upstairs, met some freak called Faba, beat him up, tortured him until he gave me the downstairs code, fought a few baddies, realized that it was all one big ruse, went back upstairs to punch Faba again, and finally moved forward. Strangely enough, we're reacquainted with Guzma, and I guess now we're being forced to fight him again. Long story short, nobody falls, and we wipe Guzma with ease. Now, Guzma displays his incredibly apparent need for a therapist before conceding defeat and letting us into where Lily's being held hostage. But get this, she's being held hostage by her own mother! Alrighty, I think universally, parenting in the Pokemon universe just needs to be governed better. Regardless, her mother reveals her misguided plan to release Ultra Beasts into our dimension using Cosmog's power against its will to do so. We follow her through a portal, she shows us all these frozen Pokemon, then she releases the Ultra Beasts into Alola, and now we have to fight her! Lusamine leads the battle with her Clefable, and I lead Red. Turn 1 we land a Fire Fang that doesn't do a whole lot, then for some reason Lusamine goes for Metronome, which lands on Mud Slap, which doesn't affect us, so we're golden. Another Fire Fang does okay damage, and Clefable rolls Lovely Kiss with another Metronome, putting our starter to sleep. Sick. Lusamine then switches Clefable out to Milotic, and my butt clenched. I opted to switch over to Brawly, thinking he could tank some hits, and that I could maybe get a few attacks off, but a Hydro Pump does just a ludicrous amount of damage, and so the only clear answer I see is the clean switch over to Courtney, so I let Brawly fall to another Hydro Pump. And as much as that really honestly sucks, it means that Courtney can come in safely. A Spark outspeeds and nearly kills the Milo, and we land the Para, and it gets full powered that turn. Courtney prevails, which baits a Lilligant. I pivot over to Red, who takes a couple of hits before waking up and using Fire Fang to clear 2-shot. Miss Magus is up next, and I swap over to Bertha, assuming a normal type move, but this thing has Power Gem, so Bertha takes a pretty unholy hit. That's all before getting off a yawn, and listen, I couldn't risk any of the other Pokemon. Even after everything she's done, Bertha is probably, and don't hate me for saying this, our most expendable Mon. I let her take a Mystical Fire, and somehow she survives! Which means that at the end of the turn, the Ghost Lady falls asleep, and we're able to switch for free, provided it doesn't preemptively awaken from its slumber. I swap to Courtney, then the next turn, Miss May just wakes up and deals a nuts amount of damage with a Shadow Ball. A bite puts the Ghost to a killing range, but Courtney gets outsped and survives a mystical fire. What is happening? A bite takes out the ghost. Beware comes in next and I swap back over to red, which was apparently a humongous blunder because I take down Oko's Charizard on the Switch. Are you serious? The starter that I've dragged from Generation 1 all the way through to Generation 7. Well, that's just synonyms, isn't it? I think you're using synonyms wrong. Shut up, I know, shut up. I switch to Cynthia, use Wing Attack like a million times and take out the bear. Clefable comes back out and a Wing Attack instantly puts it to yellow health. We take a crit Moonblast, land a Wing Attack taking a metronomed metal sound, land another Wing Attack putting this thing to no more than half an HP. Then Metronome turns into Glaciate, which isn't just super effective, but it crits. So Cynthia dies. Incredible. I'm having a wholesome and happy gaming experience. I brought out Bertha, who ended this stupid battle with a stupid water gun. Cool, whatever, let's never talk about that ever again. Some story shenanigans occur. Guzma and the president of the Foundation follow a beast into a portal, and we finally escape the overarching grip of these weirdos and their family drama. I went to Pony Island, met a fisherman, buried my dead pets, bandaged together a new team, found a Grand Bull, named it Hala, met Hapu's granddad, followed Hapu into a cave where a magical totem grants her kahuna, retrieved a magical flute, and when we return, there's a bunch of Team Skull weebs there, so we fight them off, and lost Gary, my boy, to a freaking mean look Golbat. Meaning, after just getting over the deaths of our other heroes, I've got to go and mourn Gary as well. Really? It's time to head to the Grand Trial where Hapu awaits and I can finally get out of this death pit. I hate it here. Remember when I said I needed a getaway? I lied. Get me the hell out of here. Hapu leads Alolan Dugtrio and I lead Archie. Dugtrio uses Sucker Punch and I retaliate with a Hydro Pump, which misses. Then we take another Sucker Punch, but land the next Hydro Pump so Dugtrio goes down. Flygon comes in, uses Dragon Breath, paralyzes poor Archie. Then I use Ice Fang, which puts Flygon down to red. But we land the 10% freeze. Let's go. I stay in because surely this thing isn't gonna thaw out first to... Wait, no. Archie. No! Alola! Leave me alone! This place is cursed. I need out, please. I bring in Mallow, who doesn't outspeed, and so we take a big Dragon Breath before landing a Giga Drain that knocks this thing out. Mudsdale comes in, and a Giga Drain does about half of this thing's health bar and heals us up to full. We activate the Donkey's ability Stamina, we take a Heavy Slam, and another Giga Drain kills. Gastrodon's next on our hit list, and Mallow is out for blood. A Giga Drain nearly kills and brings Mallow back up to full. We take a pathetic Muddy Water, then KO with Giga Drain, ending the battle, but not without sacrifice. After receiving the Ground Z thingamabob, I buried Archie, make my way through a cave, found a Carbink, caught the Carbink, nearly got killed by a flock of Murkrow on a bridge, swapped out some overleveled Pokemon on my team, and after dealing with some squishies, I was able to square off against our final trial in Alola. Thank God. Komo-o. This wasn't gonna be easy. I lead the battle with Dude, and off the rip, Komo-o goes for the jugular with a Sky Uppercut, but misses. Dude retaliates with an Earthquake, which deals an okay amount of damage. Then this thing decides that it doesn't want to play fair and calls in for backup. It calls in its young, then uses Clanging Scales and kills Dude. I brought in Granbull, who lowers both of their respective attacks with Intimidate, but then Komo-o reads me like a book and uses Protect to negate our Play Rough. Then Hakamo-o uses Sky Uppercut, which does like nothing. The big one uses Flash Cannon, which was a little scary, but then a quad effective Play Rough manages to KO the pseudo. I choose to switch into Faulkner to bring it home. We tank a Sky Uppercut, then after watching Hakamo-o use Work Up, on Aerial Ace kills and we win. It's over. I can leave. I came to Alola a proud and excitable young spiff, ready for anything. I'm leaving a shallow husk. This cursed region chewed me up and spat me out, claiming the lives of like half my Pokemon, and all of my good ones. Not to mention the fact that in Generation 8 they slashed the decks, so most of my Pokemon won't even survive the trip. Things are about to get interesting, to say the least. Anyway, I embark from the gym and find myself wandering in the wild area of Galar, where after exploring for a while, I actually came across a Moonstone. And I don't know if you remember, but we have a Nidorino on the bench. So with great haste, I went to check the box to grab Bruno, and, you can see for yourself. Juan, Gary, Faulkner, Hala, Whitney, Bertha, and Dude have all ceased to exist, which sucks. That's exactly a third of my remaining roster. Now, the first thing on my list, especially since most of my Pokemon have been Thanos'd from Galar, is to evolve Bruno. So he evolves from Nidoran to Nidorino, and our former sort of half-current egg Phoebe survives the Thanos snap. And so I do the most tedious thing in this game in that I grind Togepi's happiness. So after spending literally an hour or two tickling my Togepi, then feeding her various questionable curries, her happiness got to the point where after growing her just one level, she evolved into Togetic. Now, the importance of this is that Togetic evolves via Shiny Stone, and when I look in my bag to evolve Bruno again with the Moonstone, I found a Shiny Stone in there waiting for me. I have absolutely no idea when I acquired it. However, this feels like Orange Yoda just throwing me a lifeline and I could use the charity after Alola. So long story short, I evolved Phoebe into Togekiss and Bruno into Nidoking. Thriving. I enter the Hammerlock Stadium where the gym rep tells me that Raihan's gone off on some other escapades. And so I go to track him down, leave Hammerlock to the east, meet Hop on the other side of the bridge, the kid brags about his brother, and when I return to Hammerlock, Hop, Leon, Sonia, and Magnolia were all talking about Dynamaxing. Or the Darkest Day, or something. I wasn't really listening, I was still wallowing in my PTSD from Alola. Regardless, I did actually listen when Leon told me to forget about it and just focus on my gym challenge. What an out. Imagine if they'd done that in Alola. Okay, enough hanging on to the past. I couldn't think of a good way to run my encounter here, so I pretty much went to the wild area and did this. Okay, I'm in a battle. Okay, I mean, I'll take it. It's not bad. I caught the Stuffle, called it Hop, evolved Hop, and re-entered the castle stadium. Raihan lures me into a private room and has me double battle his minions in succession. I beat up the first dude and nobody died. Then I beat up the second one and nobody died. Then it was time for the third one where nothing interesting happened and nobody died. But listen, now we find ourselves center stage coming up against the dragon guy, Raihan. He leads a Flygon and a Gigalith and I lead with Hala and Phoebe. Off the bat, Sandstream's activated, so I have to keep an eye on that. We get outsped and Phoebe takes a Thunder Punch from the Flygon, then retaliates by using a Charm back on the Flygon. Gigalith sets up rocks and Hala uses a Tailwind. Now that we outspeed, another Charm against the Flygon puts it at -4 attack. And a Water Pulse does decent-ish chip on the Gigalith. But my friends, we girl bossed a little too close to the sun and Flygon lands a quad effective Thunder Punch, which also manages to crit through the attack drops and it one-shots Hala. Gigalith flinches, so I mean, at least there's that. I bring Hop in, who takes chip from the stones on the switch. I use this turn to charm the Flygon again and a Hammer Arm from Hop knocks out the Gigalith. Flygon opts to use Breaking Swipe, which doesn't affect Phoebe, and because of the attack drops, it does absolutely nothing to Hop. Raihan brings in a Sandaconda and I immediately Aura Sphere to get off some decent damage. Phoebe takes a Steel Wing from the Marshmallow Flygon, the Snake uses Glare on Hop, Hop uses Strength on the Snake and the Tailwind peters out. I opted for an Extreme Speed on Sandaconda, which didn't KO, and then Flygon lands another weak Thunder Punch. Phoebe got glared as well and Hop got full powered so couldn't move. Sick. Phoebe took both hits like a champ and retaliated with an Aura Sphere that killed the Sandaconda. Then because of its ability, the Sands reactivated. That's just awesome. Raihan's Ace Duraludon hits the field and Dynamaxes, so now it's got windows. Flygon outspeeds and uses Break and Swipe, and a Max Rockfall obliterates Phoebe. I didn't want to switch so that someone else could take a Dynamax move, and so now that I have the clean switch, I bring in Bruno. I Dynamax Bruno into a Behemoth, taking a Break and Swipe from Flygon, which activates Bruno's Poison Point. Then the Skyscraper targeted Hop, who somehow actually takes the hit. Then Bruno's Max Quake obliterates Raihan's Ace, and so now all that's left is a -6 attack Flygon. But our barely still alive bear uses Hammer Arm, which crit and O-code the pseudo. We made it out! After besting him in battle, Raihan and I shook hands and he gave me a weird dragon-encrusted gold shard, which I guess constitutes my entire gym challenge. We've collected a gym badge for every single region from Kanto all the way to Galar. Now all that's left is an Elite Four challenge, the scattered remnants of a once strong army, and a dream. So we leave the gym and instantly we're greeted with a surprise. Wait a second. Oh my god, wait. Shelly, Gary, Fennel, Hop, Bruno, Flint, Lenora, Bertha, Hala, Courtney, and Faulkner. The first thing on my Paldea to-do list was to get an encounter, but because there's so many areas with specific type spawning Pokemon, I just decided to leave my encounter entirely up to fate. Hey Siri, pick a number between 1 and 400.
The answer is 364.
So I went to Glaciado Mountain and caught the coffee table and I named her Breer. Then I proceeded forth towards our penultimate showdown, the Elite Four. Rika! Rika? She leads her Whiscash and I lead Mallow. After using a few Quiver Dances, taking a couple of Blizzards, dodging a few Blizzards, and healing with Synthesis, a single Giga Drain knocked out the Whiskerfish. Camerupt hit the field and I decided to Terrastalize Mallow for max damage output, and a Giga Drain one-shot the Lava Camel as well. Next in was Donphan, who hangs on to 1 HP because of its ability Sturdy, but another hit and the elephant goes down. Dugtrio gets outsped and another G-Drain one-shots. Then finally, the only Pokemon remaining was Rika's Clodsire. She Terrastalizes to the pure ground type and protects to waste about 15 seconds of my life. However, the next turn, a Giga Drain does what it needs to, and we're one step closer to Gita. Popith! The Adolescent sends out an elephant, and I lead Mallow. The idea here is to try and get 3 charms off so that the elephant becomes a marshmallow. After landing all 3, I pivot Mallow out and bring in Price, who takes a hit on the switch. The only reason I opt for this switch was to use Will-O-Wisp and half this already fluffed up Copperaja. And so after successfully commencing the plan, I go into Lana, the Carbink. She takes some initial damage from Stealth Rocks that this thing managed to set up earlier. Then I Terrastalize to the pure rock type to lose the quad weakness this to steal. Essentially, and I didn't know this because I've never really paid much attention to this thing, but Carbink has some absolutely ludicrous defensive stats. So I decided to give Lana Iron Defense and Calm Mind so that if she ever saw the chance to set up, she could tear through anything. And that's exactly what she does. One body press and the elephant went down, another and the Bronzong fell. Magnezone outsped and managed to get a light screen off, but even then, it fell to 2 hits. The Corviknight used Iron Defense and a body press still did really good damage, so another and the birdie went down. This Carbink, I'm telling you, is a force to be reckoned with. Poppy's ace, Tinkaton, hits the field. They terrestrialize in a redemption feat to try and take out my absolute warrior Lana, but a Gigaton Hammer didn't even take half of Lana's remaining health, and so one single body press decimated the Tinkaton, taking the battle. Lorenzo! My guy leads Tropius and I opt for Mallow. I taught a light screen and Tropius uses Sunny Day to activate Chlorophyll. Then I switch over to Whitney, who takes an Air Slash, then takes another before getting flinched. Sick. I opted to use Snarl as much as possible with Whitney to negate the special attack of this exclusively special attacking Banana Tree. Then with that part of the plan through, I swap back over to Mallow just to set up another light screen. I'm being careful, man. Every death here could be detrimental to the run. Regardless, I go over to everyone's favourite girl boss, Lana, and set up Calm Minds before using Power Gem to absolutely obliterate Larry's lead. Staraptor hits the field, hits a pretty weak close combat, and dies to a single Power Gem. When Altaria comes in, I use Iron Defense just to make sure that Larry's ace wouldn't, you know, kill Lana. But once that was through, a Power Gem OHKO'd the Cloud Dragon. Oricorio was next, and after getting confused by a Teeter Dance, Lana broke straight through and one-shot that thing as well. Flamigo, Larry's ace, was next and last. He terrestrialized and used a liquidation that did nothing, then another single hit from our rabbit-eared unidentified floating Moonrock meant that we were 3/4 of the way through the Elite Four. Hassel, the second Dragon Wielder this run. Let's fight. He leads Noivern and I lead Breer, who took a Super Fang on turn 1 before letting loose a quad-effective avalanche that OHKO'd Hassel's lead. Solid start. Haxorus comes in and I opt to swap over to Mallow, who takes a pretty hard Iron Head on the switch-in. Then Mallow comes through and survives on 1 HP from a Dragon Claw, meaning that we can get a single charm off before, unfortunately, switching to and sacking Drasna the Sliggoo, you know, so that we can get a clean switch. But let's pause here for a second because I know you're wondering why Drasna isn't a Goodra yet, and the answer to that is because I ran around Paldea for the best part of 3 hours looking for rain and it just wouldn't. No matter where I went or what I did, there was a region-wide drought. Anyway, I brought in Price, took a hard crunch, landed a Will-O-Wisp, and switched on out to none other than girl boss Lana the Carbink. She took a crunch on the switch that does a measly 4 points of damage, but Lefties gets her right back up to full. Then, after taking a few Iron Heads and setting up a few Iron Defenses and a few Calm Minds, she went crazy. A Moonblast OHKO's Axe Face, then a Seaweed Dragon came in and died to a couple of Earth Powers. Flapple came in and fell to just 1 Moonblast. And finally, Hassel brought in Baxcalibur, Paldea's Pseudo and his ace. Lana got outsped, ate the Glaive Rush for breakfast, and retaliated with a Moonblast that shook the heavens, obliterating her enemy in 1 single hit. I'm sorry, but Carbink? Who would have put this video down to a Carbink? Anyway, friends, the journey one way or another ends here, with this fight. The champion of Paldea and our 9th and final conquest, Geeta. She leads her Ostrich and I lead Juan the Volbeat. Now, after taking a pretty nasty hit, we retaliate with a Bug Buzz that does lovely damage. And this is where I made a pretty radical blunder because I failed to take into account that Lumina Crash harshly lowers our SPDF. And so with just 1 more hit, Juan fell. I brought in Mallow, who took a solid amount from another Lumina Crash and retaliated with a Pollen Puff that KO'd Espathra. When Veluza came in, I opted to stay and get a charm off, then we got hit by a weak Ice Fang, so I opted for the same thing. We land the charm, take the hit, and don't get frozen. Listen, I see this as my opportunity, so I used charm 1 final time, and since Mallow didn't get crit, she survived the last hit, meaning that I could use the following turn to get some HP back with Synthesis. This could be our chance to set up with Quiver Dance. Except, on that very turn, the fish landed a crit, which, needless to say, absolutely obliterated Mallow. I bring in Price the Kalos champion, apparently, and land a Will-O-Wisp before taking a weak hit. Then I pivot over to the one and only Lana, who is our last hope at any sort of setup. We take a weak hit, but recover back with lefties. Then I had Lana set up with Iron Defense and Calm Mind, praying for no crits. If Lana goes down here, I don't think we can win this fight. But with RN Geodude on our side, Lana survived through her setup, and now she could really turn on the jets. She Moonblasts and the fish falls. The Samurai comes in, but 1 single Earth Power floors that as well. The Coffee Table comes in next, but again falls to 1 single hit. Go-Go is next, and they outspeed, bulk up, and actually survive a hit. Then Lana took a Horn Leech. The goat recovered a bit, but fell instantly to an unnecessary crit Earth Power. Finally, Geeta brought in her ace Glamora. The Toxic Alien Rock hits the field. They terrestrialize to the pure rock type, and in perfect unison, I copied them exactly, terrestrializing Lana to the pure rock type as well. Then they used a super effective Earth Power on Lana, which she absolutely devoured. And Lana, funnily enough, copied that as well. The only difference was they couldn't survive it. There was no chance. Lana was just too powerful. And so So my friends, there it is. Champions of a Nuzlocke that crossed through every single region. Some Pokemon fell, some didn't make it past their native regions, but they all played a part in making this the most fun challenge I've done on this channel to date. Here's to the ones we left behind.